Hey everyone, I got something new today. This one's called the Drawbar Lock. It was going to be called the Helping Hand, but partway through I realized that I needed another gadget, and so there's a second video following this one. It's going to be called the Arbor Lock, or maybe the Tool Arbor Lock. And more importantly, neither of these are a spindle lock. If you go looking on YouTube, you'll find lots of spindle locks. People make them. Some mills have them built in. This one doesn't, and I didn't want one. I wanted a drawbar lock and an arbor lock, so I came up with these two gadgets. Both are extremely simple in concept. One's a little bit more complex than the other to make, but together they make operating this mill a heck of a lot easier than it was. So check them both out. So I need to get this out. Okay, how do we do that? Well, let's go back to this one, which is the spindle spanner. Back to this thing. Put that on top. And this is where it gets really painful, depending on how tight this was and the temperatures and all that. I can tell it. Oh. Okay, so we got the first release. And we can spin it until it catches. And there's a mechanism up here where the drawbar will now force this piece out of the taper if we keep turning. And that can be quite see, this is painful because gripping it is hard up top. That, and I'm doing that while I've got work pieces set up. You know, it's not fun, not fun at all. So as you can see, that's a bit of a drama, and I don't really like that part of this whole process. So I thought it'd be nice to have a helping hand. That's why I came up with this little gadget. So stick around and see what I did. So let's start putting the helping hand together. It's pretty straightforward. I'll begin with this piece here. This is just 5mm aluminum, and this piece of rubber, 5mm channel like that. I wasn't sure I was going to paint it at first, but then I decided to go ahead. I used some CRC etching primer, and then used the caliper spray that I like to use. It gives me this neat sort of finish which covers up a lot of imperfections. A little bit of a stipple finish without being a wrinkle finish. There we go. Figured it out yet? Now for the next bit, let's put this, I think, here. Again, just a piece of 5mm plate. And this is a bracket from the hardware store, steel. Alright, you can see the how I put it all together afterwards. These are of course just tapped straight into the aluminium. I'll leave it a little bit loose. So this is all going to be screwed together tightly. The fourth one I'll put in when it's on the mill. Now for up here, initially I wasn't sure how strong it would be, and so this steel bracket was going to give me some of that strength, but in the end it's more than strong enough. These are M3s, I think, just out of one of those assortment kits, countersunk. Cool. Pretty tidy, odd looking piece. And now let's get over to the mill and carry on assembling this there. There's 4 screws here, and this top is just plastic, of course. I wanted to keep it exactly as is, so I'll pull that off. Okay, now in here we've got nothing, just a hole. That's all. So let's move right along with this assembly. This is what we do. Pokes through there. So I put those screws in. So at this point we can see that all I've done, took out 4 screws, took out 2 more screws, put this gadget on, and then put 2 screws back in. So as for that front wire, we keep all the same bits, and we generally have it still going in the same direction. Like that. There we go. Okay, put the head back on and we're done. Now, what does it do? Let's have a look. So obviously the first thing we want to do is get some tool into this thing. And so normally we'd be going like this. We take the cap off and I'd get up here with the tool, put it on, and start spinning like that. The change is, instead of this, we have this. Feature number one, it actually fits. Like that, it clips on and off. Whereas my old one, the original factory part, just sits in there and doesn't hold at all, so it's falling off all the time. My new replacement, which I made out of acetal on the lathe, fits very nicely. So now I come to the mill and I want to mount this thing. I come up here, pop that off, there's something inside there. So we push it out. Now I can do one of two things. I can either turn it around and put it back in here and use it like that, or I can leave it out and put this away. So we take this gadget, we walk up here, and we put it in. I've just dropped it in that hole. Now we come down here, see what happened? It holds it. It's my helping hand, right? So now I can come here, I can tighten it. Now that's the equivalent of having to have my hand up there and doing that, which is a lot more awkward and quite painful on the hands when you get real tight. So I've put that on, and I've actually tightened that up really very tight. Next part is, of course, I want to get some kind of tool in here. Say this 6mm collet holder with the 5.5mm drill. I put it in, I start spinning, and of course now, well, I've already done it. There we go, I've already turned it up just using my hand to where it holds. And now I can do this. But if it needs to be really tight, I shouldn't do that. I should actually still use this against the holder itself, not the spindle, and go like that to get it real tight, okay? So I'm not suggesting that I would go for maximum tightness using my helping hand. When I'm ready to go, pop it out, put it away. Pretty good. If I had left it sitting in here, like that, right, I'd pop it out, put it in like that, and I'm good. That can stay there. You know, it could live like that. But I do quite like the idea of being able to put it away and you don't even know it exists. So that's how I can use this whole thing. Very cool. Let's get it out. And let's say I want to pull all this out again. Plonk. I don't even have to go up there and push it in. It goes in all by itself. At this point, if I undo it like this, it could undo the nut to the collet holder, or it could undo the whole holder against the drawbar, depending on which one's tighter. So again, if I'm working on the tools here, I should loosen it initially like that. But in many cases, I might not need to pull it out, put it away. Now about this gadget, some people might be thinking, oh, that's sort of risky to leave this sitting in there like that. You might turn it on. I've done it once, and if I had let it sit for another second or two, it would have blown a fuse, but it didn't. When I first designed this, I had the idea that I might paint it pink or have a piece of pink string hanging off it, that just always hangs down the side. And if this became a problem, I could do that. I think once you've forgotten it in there once, you won't do it again. And there we go. Let's take the whole thing out one last time. take it to where it needs to crack it off, and we're done. And that, my friends, is Rob's helping hand. In the next part of this video, I'm going to have a look at this in more detail and up close, and also at the gadget that's installed here. And then after that, we'll look at some machining clips, because there's plenty of those as well. Alright, stick around, watch the rest. Okay, so one of the constraints was I didn't want to mess this up at all. I didn't want to drill this, I didn't want to file it, didn't want to do anything to this housing. Just leave it as it is. I already mentioned, I think, that this cap, I never used it because it doesn't fit. It has no hold at all, it just sits there. So it's really no use. So I already had a motivation to fix that, maybe with a new cap. But I didn't really consider that until I was well on the way with this design. Now the way this works is, when I cut this top off, we'll see there's a square hole in this big plate in there. And you operate it by lining it up square with the housing. That's the only thing you have to do manually, is line it up square. So you put it in, and it's not hard because as you can see, I've chamfered that edge a little bit. And you can feel it with your fingers. You can tell. You just have your thumb against it, and you know that that's happened. You don't have to line it up with this thing. That's the whole point. So this hole is circular all the way up until that edge, at which point it becomes the square hole. So when I drop that on there, the first bit that engages after that in the hole is that this edge engages with the square of the case there, the plate that I've put in there. So boom, that's now engaged with this plate, but it hasn't engaged the drawbar yet, but it's sitting there with a bit of weight on it. And that was the idea. I wouldn't have to touch it anymore. I could just walk away, come down here and there. As soon as I spin this thing, up to a quarter of a turn in either direction, it'll engage. Another constraint you can see here right now is just how far this thing is offset towards the rear. Like, it's so far out the back I can't quite get a finger in there, but I can easily get a finger or even a thumb in up here. And so one of the things I had to do was figure out just how big could I make this thing and get maximum use of that space. And that was it. It's about 30 millimeters. 30 millimeter diameter, so 15 millimeter radius around that drawbar was the maximum amount of space before it would hit this housing. Like that, it misses it. See? Whether I should make it square or another shape was another decision. But I went with the square because it's sort of universal. All four sides are the same, where everything's in a line. There's a certain sort of logic to it. It just seems right. This idea of having this round bit, that just formed as I was making this. I sort of thought, well, why don't I have a bit sticking up, like as a handle for holding, and even for turning it if I need to, you see? And so I did that. I left that on, and that's been good as well. I had to machine these corners right to the very edge. Now, as far as this cap is concerned, I didn't think about doing this until part way through, and I sort of thought, well, maybe I could incorporate the cap into this. If I had some kind of mounting on here, I could mount it into this hole. So I would use it, then I'd pull it out and flip it upside down and mount it in the hole, and it would just sit there like that. And that eventually evolved into this idea. I'll make a new cap, because the old cap was rubbish. I've got 50 millimeter rod of black acetal, and so that's what this is. I copied the taper. I made much better tabs. I actually cut them so that there's a wider bit there and then a narrow bit behind it, so that when you put it on, it actually clips in properly. Real nice. So that's great. And it's got 6 tabs rather than 4, so they do actually have a little bit of give. And the idea then was that, oh, well, why don't I just store this in the top? It could be in the middle, so long as it's above that. And it can sit in all 4 directions, and you put your thumb in to press it out. And I made it so it sits very, very slightly proud of the top. That was on purpose, so that you could see it and feel it. It's not recessed, but sitting there. Once I was finished, the square holes were really hard to do, and it was such a mess in the end. I had this idea of putting a
circular plate in on this end. It's just pressed in there, and it covers up the messy cut of the square hole on this end. The other side's okay. That's the side I had to be really careful with. And so that's quite a nice touch as well, I thought. Makes it look quite clean. And of course, you can push your thumb through it to get it out, like that. Right, so that's that bit. Now let's take it all off and have a look at the plate in there. So in keeping with the desire not to damage or modify the case or the mill in any way for this mod, I had to come up with a way to mount it inside here, make it really strong, because that's a lot of torque you're dealing with, but not in any way change this housing. And so I was looking around these edges, and I noticed, well, you've got 1, 2, 3 holes, and the same on the other side. And I had this idea of mounting it either side of the motor. And so I've got this plate, which is fitted tightly on the motor. I've got this rubber extrusion on it as well. That's more than strong enough. So I'm very happy with that. And so let's say we're like that. We put it on, plonk, in it goes. Okay, so now you've seen the problem, you've seen the solution, you've seen what it actually looks like and how it works, and what follows is going to be just a whole lot of the machining clips that I made whilst I was putting this all together. There's quite a bit. I don't know how long it's going to be, but stick around if you want to watch that. In the meantime, if you like what you see, give me a like, subscribe, follow, comment, all of that good stuff. Okay, stick around for the machining. Otherwise, bye-bye. And so there we go. If you like what you saw, give me a like, give me a subscribe, comment, let me know what you think. Let me know if you make one for yourself.